infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
So, Marcus, first of all, thank you so much for getting in touch with me. I know that you're following me on several of the various social media platforms, and you reached out, and I appreciate that. So, now, are we going to be talking about one single state where these different experiences happened, or should we just go state to state because they did happen in different places?
Well, no, they all happened in the same state in Southwest Virginia. It's just they happened in like just down the road a little ways.
Oh, so they're all even in the very same area there where you are now.
Yeah, I live in Scott County, Virginia, and it's around Wake County and Wise County, the very corner of Virginia.
And have you been out there most of your life?
Yeah, I grew up here. I've lived here my whole life. When you live here, there's just like the strange and stuff is just kind of normal here.
So the paranormal's not so abnormal there.
Not really. All the people around here, they'll say, hey, you never know what might come out of these mountains, and then somebody will start off on a story about something they've seen, something that's happened to them, and just, I don't know, when you live here around Appalachia, you know, it's just all kinds of weird stuff.
And if you don't know someone, like say you're just at a gas station and maybe you're talking to the cashier about some strange whatever, would somebody behind you in line then chime in and share maybe one of their quick stories, or would you have to know someone? Like, is it a close-knit thing where they, you know, you wouldn't trust someone that you don't know with a story that's a little odd?
Well, both. It really just kind of depends on the personality of the person, whether or not, just depends on how they see life, I guess.
Yeah, if they're open to such a thing and sharing.
Or actually, it's more of how they want other people to view them instead of how they see things. It just depends. Some people, they don't care and they just will dive right in, and then other people are more of secretive and don't really want to talk, or maybe they're afraid of stuff. Sometimes people are just secretive. It's I guess it's just kind of the culture and stuff of, you know, all the people that came over that just come up here and live in the mountains by themselves. Some take, you know, some don't want to talk to outsiders, and some don't care. Some people just are like, oh, you've seen that? Well, I've seen this, you know.
Yeah, that's understandable, because no matter where, I think what part of the country you're in, depending on if you're at work, if you're talking to friends at a party, there's going to be eye rolls, and then other people are going to go, oh, that's so weird because here's what happened to me. So that's understandable. Well, okay, Marcus. Now you sent me a bullet point list with, I mean, some of the minutia of each of these stories. But do you want to start right down the list of what you sent me, which would be number one of my favorite subjects, of course, and that is a possible Bigfoot encounter that you had. Let's talk about that.
Okay, yeah, that's one of my favorite things too, and ever since this it happened to me when I was younger, and I've been in following it and stuff ever since. I lived in a little town called Duffield at the time. This was around 2004 or 5 when it happened, somewhere around in that time period. I had a friend of mine staying with me. I lived in a little single wide trailer in a trailer park. But from the trailer park, there's a road and then a big mountain, and all that is just forest land. You, there was a little driveway across that 2-lane road, and it went up to a couple of houses. One of the houses happened to be my mama's brother, my great uncle John, and so I would walk up and down that little driveway with my dog. One night, I don't know what it was, I just couldn't sleep, and well, I'll just go for a walk, because I grew up in the country. I'm not, I know what's out there, and it don't, I'm not worried about it, and I thought maybe that'll, help me get sleep. Well, my buddy was good. I said, I'm just going to go up here for a walk, see what's going on. I can't sleep. Yeah, I'll come with you. I said, okay. We walked up through there, and there's a train track that snakes through there. You go up this little hill, and over the train track, and then the road split, and one went to one house and one went to my Uncle John's house, and it wasn't too far apart, but there was nothing but woods and mountain behind it. That's all it is. It goes on for forever. We get up to almost the crossing. Something let out this loud, loud scream, and it was something I never heard before. It was this really, really deep bass noise, but also this very high pitched scream noise all together. It was it was like it was making it all at the same time, like a high pitch and low bass all at the same time. I'd never heard anything like that. We both just froze. We kind of talked to each other for a second, like, "Hey, man, what was that?" "I don't know." We said, "Well, let's just kind of sneak on up here to the crossing just a little bit, and that'll give us a better view. Maybe we can see what it was." And so we kind of snuck on up a little bit, and we got to about the middle of the crossing on the train track. We didn't see anything. We stepped off the asphalt part onto the train tracks, onto the gravel part, the cross ties, and we just kind of looking around. I mean, it was dark. It was, I'm gonna say 2 a.m. or so. We hear something May beside of us. We both turn around and we see this rock rolling down on top of the rest of the rock. I said, we both kind of looked at each other like, did you do that? And then we both turned around at the same time, and I'm looking up, and I see a rock. It wasn't very big. It was still more like one of the kinds that's on the railroad, but it comes flying out of the wood above it, and it lands right in front of our feet, and then rolls by. And that happened a couple of times. And then for some reason, I reach down and pick up that rock and I swing it back in the woods where it come from. All of a sudden, it's loud scream again, except this time it sounded a lot more pissed off. Started making this thrashing noise like it was just tearing the woods down. Said, I'm going to get the hell out of here. And I said, we kind of backed away slow, and because we've always been taught don't run away from something, it'll chase you. And so we back away slow until we feel safe enough where we can make it back down, in case something, and then we take off running after that. We get back down to the 2-lane road and cross it back, and then the trailer park was just right there. And we could hear that thing breaking limbs and making all this racket and all the way up, and it was screaming, making that same sound all the way up until almost the top of the mountain. And I was thinking to myself, how the hell did that thing get from right there where we was, then we hightail it down to the thing, and it only takes just a minute or two to make it to the top of the mountain. It would took us it's a day to get up there, and this is a steep, steep mountain. I don't know what else it could have been than a Bigfoot, but what was something about what you said earlier about how people are. My neighbor down there at the time, this was a couple of days later when I talked to him, I told him what happened, and he said, it's weird you tell me that because just the other day, somebody else he knew was driving down that same road, and there's a little field there, a little grass field, and they was driving by and they seen something there, and they said it was big and black, and it took off up towards the woods. It was just in their headlights. I mean, not in, they could just see it kind of the peripheral of their headlights, and they couldn't make out what it was or anything else. He just happened to say, well, that's weird because this other person happened to see something that's almost the same thing right at almost the same time. And that kind of added more credence to it. And I knew, I wasn't, hallucinating anything because my friend was there with me. He witnessed the same thing. That was my first Bigfoot encounter, as I call it, because I can't think of anything else it would be the way that it threw rocks and thrashed around the way it did. Throughout the years, I moved from that place just kind of on up the road a little ways. I've heard noises in the mountain that's behind my house now that it sounds almost like somebody chopping wood or something. And it's like tree knock, but there's nobody up there. And I know the people to the left of me, the people to the right of me, and behind me is nothing but mountain and forest. And so I know that there's nobody up there, but you just hear a knock, 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 and then more later, knock, knock, and I think it just happens. I've never really like wrote it down or documented like, hey, this happened at this time of year or something, but it just happens just ever so often. Like, maybe they're coming through or something. I don't know. But I've never heard anything else scream like that before, but I've heard different recordings on some of the different shows and stuff. And I'm like, hey, that's what that kind of sounds like what I heard. I know what cats sound like, the big cats, bobcats, mountain lions. I know what kind of scream they sound like. Foxes and stuff make a weird noise. All kinds of stuff around can make strange noises in the dark. But this was extremely loud. It had to be something enormous to make that kind of noise. You could, like, it was like being at a rock concert. You could feel the bass in your chest when it hit. It was,
I love the fact that you took the
like,
rock and you chucked it right back into the woods. I love that part of the story.
I just wanted to see what happened. I thought, why not? I mean, there wasn't really much of a thought to it. It was just popped in my head, and I thought, well, I'm just gonna pick it up, throw it back, and see what happens. And I did, and it didn't like it. It
Marcus,
didn't like it at all.
what do you think the possibility is that there was more than one of them?
I think they probably could have been, because I've thought about it over the years, and when we first was getting up to the crossing and we first heard it, the first scream, it sounded to us like it was over in one direction and kind of below the railroad track and on past my uncle's house, and we were both looking that way, thinking that we might see something across the train track. If when we heard him, that's why we snuck up a little bit, because we thought we might see something across the track, but we never seen anything. And it wasn't but a couple of minutes later. It wasn't very long at all when the rocks started coming out, but they come from above us, which would have been to our left, but that's where the mountain was because we was facing the railroad. So I believe that it's possible that maybe maybe there's a lot of deer that come down and eat in that little field that's at the bottom. It's basically just a little hayfield type of thing. Maybe one was down there after a deer, and the other could have been a group of them for all I know. But it would have had to have went up over the railroad into the woods, all the way around back behind my uncle's house and then back down over top of us within just seconds to be able, and I think we would have heard that. I know that my uncle, he passed away recently, but nobody, the people who knew him, nobody would have been up there. I'll say it that way. They would have been shot if there'd been any person up there messing around. You know, I had permission to be there, and he knew that I walk up and down that road, but nobody would have been behind this guy's house because he would have shot. It just wouldn't have made any sense for it to be anybody, because who would have thought that I couldn't sleep that night, and so they go to hide up in the woods waiting on somebody to come through there? It's just that you know, it don't have water. It don't make sense.
No, did you and your friend take your dog along with you for this walk?
No, I didn't take my dog that time. It was the lab. It was funny. I would always say, "Hey, you want to go for a walk?" You know, she was always ready to go. But that time, I said, You want to go for a walk?" And then she just raised her head up, looked at me, and laid it back down.
Maybe she
I said,
sensed
"Okay,
something.
you stay here and sleep."
You think
I
she
have.
sensed something then?
You could have. You know, there's stories that I've been told too, about a family of preachers that live out in a place called Mabe, Mabe, and it's not a town or anything. It's just a name people give the place, but there is nothing back there at all. And I mean, there's houses here and there, but there's just it's way back in the boonies. You know, people have always. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Natural Tunnel State Park, but the railroad goes right through the tunnel, the actual cave. It's around that area. Anyway, they say that these are 7 to 8 foot tall. They stand on 2 legs, kind of like a Bigfoot, except more like a werewolf. They say they have like a more of a snout, but they're white, and they call them the white things. And that's what they've always been called, and I've always been told that. They always say, well, those white things out at Mabe, or those white things out at Natural Tunnel. And when you say that, everybody around here instantly knows what you're talking about. I've heard, now, this is not my personal experience, but I've been told this. My dad, he had his friend told him that her dad was sitting on the porch. They lived out there in that place, that part. One day, he was looking out the kitchen window and seen 2 of them and a smaller one as they was walking by, not close, but the way I took it, it was, you know, 50, 100 yards away or something. I'm just guessing. I don't know. They didn't tell me. I know it wasn't real close, but she kind of seen their silhouettes, I guess, and she could tell that that they were white, and there was a smaller one, but it wasn't white. It kind of was, but it was more darker color. So yeah, it was a family group of them, and then her dad or somebody she was into was sitting on the porch and claimed that one of those things came up on the porch at him, and he held it away with his cigarette lighter. He had it like a big, or I mean not big, but one of them flip zip lighters, and struck that lighter, and the flame kind of kept back, I guess. Then he said years later he talked to this lady who told him the exact same story, but it was her uncle or something. She was kin to him a different way, but it was the same person, and all the same people had told my dad that story without knowing that he knew the other person.
Mm.
Maybe it was one of them things. I don't know, but that's a story that I've kind of grew up hearing my whole life.
Marcus, this word Mabe, M-A-B-E, correct?
Yeah.
So do you know really what the definition of that, according to these folks that came up with this word, would be? What does that really mean to them, Mabe?
I have no idea. All I know is that's just what we've always called the area.
That's interesting. And so this area has no houses, no, I mean, nothing. It's just very, very wooded, and maybe not a lot of people go back there.
But, no, there's houses and stuff back there, and there's a road that goes through there that kind of circles all the way around. You can go from Duffield to Gate City by essentially traveling the back roads of, how it used to be. There is a place back there that everybody I know always called the shooting range, and people had always told me that the National Guard, that we have one in Gate City, and they would say they'd go back there and do shooting practice and stuff, but I always thought it was kind of strange because the way that what they said was the shooting range seemed like it should be longer to me, but we would go back in there and ride dirt bikes and four-wheelers and stuff, and it was a place you could do that. There's houses and stuff back there. It's just not very sparsely populated, we'll say.
Gotcha. So yeah, so that house that you mentioned with the porch situation and the Zippo keeping one of them away, I thought maybe that was on the outside of this Mabe area, but that's actually inside of what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a whole little section of mountains right there.
And I pulled up a picture of, because I haven't heard of Natural Tunnel State Park, so I pulled up a picture, and sure enough, there is a massive, what looks like a crater, and then, I don't know if this is the same picture or not. It's a little tough for me to tell, but then there's another picture, and again, this might be the same hole in the earth, but with train tracks going through. So that's a cool place.
That's what it is. There is a giant cave right there. It goes all the way through the mountain, and instead of when they brought the railroad through, they did make one small tunnel right there, but they was able to put the tracks just straight through that cave and come out the other side. It's that big. And it's still like that to this day. It's on the Norfolk Southern line.
Yeah, that's an impressive feat.
But
I had never heard of that, and the pictures are extremely impressive. If anyone just Googles Natural Tunnel State Park, it'll pop right up.
yeah, it's a really nice place, and it's a huge. I mean, if you go up to the park to the top, it's a huge gorge right there. There's one spot there that they call Lover's Leap, where supposedly some lovers who couldn't be together jumped off, but I'm sure there's a million places who have that same story. The Mabe part is there's a highway of 4 lane that goes to from Gate City to Dutton, and then there's the little turnoff that goes to Natural Tunnel. And if you stay on that little 2 lane road, it brings you all the way back around to where I was talking about, and it comes back out in that field. Right up on that road, you can take a left in this little curve, and then it takes you on out to that Mabe area.
Well, now you're in Virginia, but in West Virginia, they have the white things, right? Like, I'm sure you've heard of that. And actually, I think occasionally, even the West Virginia white things will be able to walk up on 2 legs. So that's kind of interesting. I mean, if they're in the Mabe area, then vice versa. Why can't they be in West Virginia as well? So that's kind of an interesting part to, yeah, when I saw it in your email, I'm like, well, that's very unique, right? And the fact that they're white and they're, okay, so from the stories you've heard, though, they always walk bipedally?
People, yeah. I'm thinking, I'm not sure if I've ever heard anybody talk about them being on
4 or 2, yeah.
all 4s or not.
Right.
I do remember one boy that I was friends with. He worked there at the park when he was in high school with me, and he said a couple of them was out cleaning the trails, the walking trails for people, and he said that they seen something white move through the trees. And he said, what was that white thing? It moved through there. And somebody said, it's probably just a car. I said, well, no car. There ain't no road right there. And then they just left it at that. But there's been people have told me different theories that they have of why these things are white, because in that field there used to be a factory called Foot Mineral, and they made some kind of, I forgot now. They made something, and anyways, it left all this residue and stuff, and those caves in that little part. And some people were saying, well, maybe they live in that little part and roll around and got that stuff on them, something. That's just people guessing at why they're white. Because and I've heard of them being in Texas. I've seen that on one thing too. And every time I hear about, these white things, it piques my interest, because, I'm like, hey, I've got some of those. At least people have told me about them here. What are these other people saying? It's always piqued my interest, because you usually got Bigfoot, werewolves, UFOs, ghosts, but it usually don't go much further than that.
Well, it kind of makes me wonder, the reports of the white things in Mabe. if those aren't misidentified Bigfoot. You know, we hear about maybe possibly, Will Jevning talks about this all the time, different types of Bigfoot, right? And there are some reported that might have a little bit more of a snout, like you mentioned with the white things. So then, I mean, again, not to explain one strange thing with another, but I mean, maybe the rock throwing incident that you mentioned on the onset when you were younger and were taking that walk with your friend was actually one of the white things, which was in fact a Bigfoot, or maybe just the white thing is something different and that's what you guys experienced.
Yeah, I've wondered about it myself, whether there are different kinds of things. And I thought, well, if there are two different kinds of creatures, then wouldn't they instinctively be territorial against each other?
Right.
So, and then I thought, well, maybe those are like some kind of Bigfoot. Over the past few years, we have seen quite a few different things that, like albino turkeys. I've seen several albino turkeys, all white turkeys, out with a whole flock of other wild turkeys. I've seen that a couple of times myself. You know, makes me wonder if they like couldn't be, have some kind of albinoism. You know, like a certain subset group that might stay in a particular area or something, and you know, why not?
Marcus, what about your great uncle John? Since he lived right down the road from you in that original home that you mentioned, did he ever talk about having any experiences or hearing anything strange out there?
Yeah, he's when he was alive, he had told some family members that he'd heard something. When I described what I had heard, he said, "Well, that's exactly how he said it sounded. That he heard the exact same thing." I thought that was interesting that I hadn't talked to him or really mentioned any of that story to him because we didn't wasn't around each other that much, and I just never did really get a chance to talk to him about it. But I thought it was interesting that he told a couple of my family members the exact same noise, the scream noise, that he described it in the same way that I did, like with a very deep bass and a high pitch all at the same time.
And what about your parents? First of all, did you tell your parents what happened that super early morning and what you guys heard and the whole rock throw situation? And have they ever spoken to you about anything strange?
Yeah, let's see, I would have been, I was by myself then. I was probably about 20 or 21 or something when that happened. I'm not good with memory, like dates and stuff like that, but yeah, after it happened the next day, I told my mom about it. I called her up, told her. She said, "Well, you better be careful." That's just how she is. She believes me. She don't have. She knows that there's all kinds of weird stuff. She believes everything I said. And my dad, my mom and dad got divorced when I was little, so I told him about it, He actually said, well, maybe it's one of them white things out there, Mabe. Yeah, he's the one that told me about that. He really, he's really into Bigfoot and stuff too. And I guess that's probably where I get it from. He was all in, and I'd actually, at the time, had went to a website, and I don't remember if it was like the FRO or North American Bigfoot or something. It was some website that I went to where you could put in your encounters, and you could also look at encounters other people had put on there from those regions. I put mine on that. It was like a year or two later. Somebody called me and asked if they could come out and me show them, and I did. They came out. I showed them. My dad came just so he could be a part of it. We walked him up there, showed him everything, showed him where it happened, and said, okay, thanks. And then I never heard from him again. So I actually reported it, to one of those things. I don't really remember which one it was now, but it was kind of back at the beginning days of doing stuff online. Still ain't very good at it now.
Well, yeah, it sounds like a pretty active area that you have there, especially since anything like a Bigfoot, or if the white things are actually different creatures, they have plenty of cover there, and food and water. So, yeah. A question for you.
Yeah, they...
Did anybody, sorry, did anybody around there back then have a lot of livestock? Was there chickens or goats or cows or anything like that in the area? And did anybody have any problems with that?
Well, in this area, almost everybody has some kind of livestock. I don't remember hearing anybody, saying that they're something that eats their cows or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much deer and coons and possums and just anything you can think. There's plenty of other stuff and rabbits. I mean, there's just so much stuff out there that anything wouldn't have a predator wouldn't have a problem, getting a meal. Actually, I just heard something get something wasn't last night, but past 2 nights in a row, except last night. I was outside smoking about 11:30, 12 o'clock or something before I went to bed, and I heard something make a noise. I couldn't tell. It could have been anything from a cat to a deer. It was just enough noise to go, "Ah," and then it was gone. It was silent. And then I heard all this thrashing around, and it was just right below me. Then the next night, I heard something. Whatever it was, it got a rabbit then, because I could hear the rabbit, and it just like on a call blaster when you're trying to bring in a predator. It was just yapping away, and then a big crash. And I know that there's bear and all kinds of stuff here, so
Yeah, I guess
stuff.
why would a Bigfoot or a white thing, if it's different, again, why would they come in and kill something they didn't need to, especially if it might draw attention to them, right? If they're smart enough to know that, which I do believe that some of them would be smart enough to know that, to not draw attention from the hairless people things that are also sharing the woods, right? So, well,
yeah, that's right.
Well, let's switch gears here a little bit, and I'm going to read something to set you up a little bit. But I just Googled this in preparation for our talk, And here is a quote. It says, according to the Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources, there are no mountain lions, cougars, or pumas in Virginia. So let's talk about that statement a little bit, shall we?
Yeah, it's easy to say that when you sit in the office all day. If you don't go looking for something, you'll never find it. And then sometimes things just come to you. But I know that there are mountain lions here. I know there's black ones here too. And I know they say that mountain lions don't have that kind of thing to make that color, but there are giant black cats here. And it's went all the way back to when my mama's mommy was little. You know, she was born in 1919, and they've been seeing them since then. Last year there was 5 different people. That's just like a rough estimate, but close to it. That we know that live here around this part that had called and was just talking to my mama on the phone down at her house. She lives below me. Had told her about how they was out hunting and they seen a mountain lion, and then they seen another person, the same one with kittens. This was all within a short span of time too. And these were all different people who didn't, I mean, some of them might know each other, but, you know, they had no idea that they calling to tell my mama. They was just saying it like they don't call to say things like that to tell a story. They call to tell you that so you'll be careful to watch out.
Right.
Yeah, that's how it is around here. I mean, if your neighbor sees coyotes or something, they'll call you up and be like, hey, I seen a couple of coyotes last night. You know, be careful about watch your cats or something. But these were all experienced hunters, and one of them was my cousin. He seen a mountain lion. That was last year. There's been several people who seen black ones, and then I seen a black one I guess about 2 years ago, or yeah, about 2 or 3 years ago. Things have kind of grown up since then, and I can't see that all as good as I could then. You know, just because the leaves and trees and stuff growing, bushes and everything. But it was about 50 yards away, I'm guessing. There's it used to be a field, and just kind of grew up. The old man who used to work it, he died, and it all just kind of grew up. There's a big rock that sits over there in front of his reservoir. I went out one day to, I always see stuff when I go outside to smoke a cigarette. It's like I just happened to go out at just the right time for some reason.
You just know.
I don't know what it is. It's like I just go out and all of a sudden something weird happens. But yeah, I seen movement, and that's what caught my eye. And so, I turned my head and I'm looking directly at it, and there's this giant cat, and it jumped off of that big rock down behind this tree, and then at that time it was not grew up as much, and then it turned and went up into the mountain, straight up into the mountain, into the thicket there, and I only got a few seconds, 30 seconds maybe, maybe not even that. I don't know. Time kind of stands still when you see stuff like that, but and it wasn't a bear, because even though it was just the height of its shoulders would have been a big black bear at the very most. It was huge.
Wow.
And I knew it wasn't a bear because it had a big, long tail curled up at the end, just like a mountain lion does. And the thing is, my house cat goes over around and gets on that rock. And being able to compare sizes, that and me being over there before on that thing, that thing was huge. I mean, it would. I don't know. I mean, I'm talking a big black bear, except as a cat with a big long tail. It had to been 10 foot long, with its tail and everything included, and it just jumped, it kind of pounced over just like a cat would. And I've watched my cat do the same thing. It just didn't go as far, and it moved through swift and smooth, and it then turned and it went in the thicket and it was gone. But, actually, I come in, I got my gun, and I've got on my side of the fence a road that goes up through there, but it hit through it too, and I walked up through there a ways to see if I could see it again. I had my camera, I had my gun. I wasn't going to shoot it because I just had that for protection. Uh, all the stuff around here, you don't want to go in the woods without some kind of protection. But I never did see it, and it never made a noise, ever. I mean, it was just silent and smooth, just like, if it was a bear, when a bear comes through, it can kind of make a lot of racket, but not this thing. It was like a deer or something, it didn't make a sound. It just right up through that thicket like it was nothing.
And very, very dark black, like silky black.
Oh yeah, it was jet black.
Mm.
It was all, they wasn't almost spots or almost color. It was just all solid black.
I know that we all know, regardless of what happens when you Google, like I did, because every state says that. Oh, there's nothing like that here. But I would say,
even though that they put tags on mountain lions and they watched them go from the west coast to the east coast, they
right.
still say, no.
Oh yeah, they never cross into this state. That's insane. That doesn't happen. Yeah. So even because we all know that it seems like they're in most states, at least. But to actually see one and to have it be that big had to be quite humbling.
It was. I probably could have went and got my phone to take a picture, but I usually just, I don't really care about, I don't really get many calls, and I don't really mess around much on there and that. Just kind of follow people that that I like, and just, I might make a comment here and there, but I don't really, care much about it. So I could have like grabbed it, but I was just in that moment of where I wanted to see it. Like I didn't care whether anybody else did or whether anybody believed me or not. I just wanted to watch it. It's not like I would have had time anyway, because if I'd made a move, it would have been gone anyway by the time I would have got something. It was just there, and then it jumped off the rock, it turned, and then it was, the way it moved was just so smooth, and it was, I mean, it's the way you see all these other big cats move,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just so, I want to say, like, majestic. I was kind of in awe of it. Even as big as it was that far away, I knew it was going to get me. I have. Uh, and it was going on up in the woods, and then I decided, well, I'm going to go see, now after I've seen it, now I'm going to go see if I can, see it again. Maybe I can get a picture or something this time, but,
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine walking down a trail and that thing is stalking you, but from behind? Like you wouldn't even know that it was there with these ninja like skills that it has, and then you're just hoping that if it goes for you that you can reach for your gun while it's on top of you.
yeah. And the thing about these mountain lions and other cats that are like it, they can be 3 foot away from you and you never know it.
Right.
You can walk right by and it can be sitting there watching you, and you just go on the wiser. Makes you wonder how many people have walked by, mountain lions or something like that, and they just didn't happen to be hungry right
Right.
then.
Right. They didn't realize how lucky they were, how close they came.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would, oh my gosh. What a cool sighting though, because I'm sure you've heard it on my show. I've had several people come on and go, "Oh yeah, they're in my state. Of course they're here. Here's my story."
Yeah. And like I was saying about my granny though, when my mama had told me this story about her mother, and it was when she was younger. And like I said, she was born in 1919, so this probably would have been in maybe the 40s or something, uh, or 50s, somewhere around in that time, I guess. I'm not sure. I'm just going off what my mama told me, but she said my great granny, she was out doing her chores. They had a farm and milk cows and all that stuff. And she was out doing her chores and stuff, and she looked up, and up in the holler above her, there was a big black cat sitting there. My mom said that she told that story till the day she died, that, she knew what it was. She said it was a black mountain lion. Whether there's some kind of mountain lion or whether I don't really care about getting into specific species, genome stuff. That's for somebody else to do. It's the people around this area, when they see it, they think, mountain lion, I've seen one of those. This one's black. That's as far as it goes.
Yeah, you're like, all that matters is I know they're here, regardless of color or size or shape, right?
Yeah. Now, all the ones I was saying from last year, those hunters and stuff, all those were yellow. I mean, regular mountain lion color. Tan. and then the one had cubs, but it's just like ever so often you'll hear one about it being black. And it's like it's almost like there's a group of them that either, like, and it kind of makes sense to me that if a mountain lion was like the tan color and stuff works great out west, but in the Appalachian Mountains, it kind of makes a little more sense for it to be black because
Right.
it would blend in more.
Absolutely.
And wild things, they say, oh no, they can't be that. Like, well, why can't they evolve? Yeah, I mean, we ain't cracked all the codes that there is to crack. Maybe a certain sect of mountain lions lived here and developed a black coat. Maybe some of them just kept getting darker and darker and darker over the years, and that's the ones that might kind of originally been here, and then the tan ones are the ones that are starting to come back in. I think because used to they wasn't quite as many sightings of mountain lions and stuff, but now it's like it's exploded. Everybody's seeing them. My dad had told me that he had read a newspaper clipping from one of the local newspapers from this area right here. He had cut it out of the paper when he was a kid, or at least a teenager or younger. But there was a cat that got killed right down below where I live on the 4 lane, and they said it was 50 pounds, and it was a young cat, but it was black. He cut that out of the paper, and he said he kept it for years and years, and then he don't know whatever happened to it now. But I don't know if there's any way anybody could. There's got a lot of stuff to look through, I guess, if there's any way anybody could ever, go back and look through those things. But he said it was hit by a car, like there's a train trestle that goes across the road, and he said it was hit by a car down there, and they come and got it, and they said that it was huge, 50 pounds, and they ain't no house cat that weighs 50 pounds. And when they done their, I guess, autopsy or something, or got somebody specialist or somebody coming to look at it, and they said it was a young cat, or at least that's what he told me. I didn't see it myself, so I don't know. So.
Yeah, absolutely. No, all those folks, including the people that hit that thing, and you that have seen an actual one like jumping off the rock in your yard, which is so cool. You guys are all just misidentifying. They're all house cats because according to VDWR, there are no mountain lions there. So see, y'all are just crazy. All right, so switching gears to our last subject. And this is one that I do enjoy talking about because of the fact that I have had one of these sightings, and that was, of course, at the Brown property in Washington State. But our last subject to cover is lights in the woods.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't in the woods, it was in the sky.
Oh, okay. I was off on that one because you mentioned orbs. I just assumed it was in the forest. Okay, sorry. Take it away.
No. They were orbs, but again, I was just outside.
Another smoking story.
And
You need to make
yeah,
sure
I mean,
you got to go outside like every hour on the hour for the next like year, and let's see how many more stories we can get out of you, huh?
well, I don't know, that might mess everything up if I went out like
That's
that. I
true.
think it's where I believe it's where it's like just a random,
Uh-huh.
all of a sudden I'm there, you know.
Yeah.
And when I go out at night to smoke, I'm basically just staring up at the sky anyway, or you know, there's no light pollution or anything here where I live, so I can see all the stars and everything. I see the space station go by, and you know, but this one night, I'm standing out there on the porch, and all of a sudden, something, you know, out of peripheral vision, something catches my eye, and it's orange. I look up, coming over the mountain, like over top the trees, is this orange orb. It it was hard to really tell how high up it was, but there's, I'll put it this way, they may have flights and stuff that come from the hospital. There's military jets that fly over as low as they can get, you know, here practicing to the mountains, and it was probably a little bit higher than that or at that height, but it didn't feel like it was way up for normal cruising altitude for, you know, commercial airlines are. It didn't seem like it was that high. It seemed a lot lower than that. But it was orange, like it wasn't putting off light. It was just the light itself. It was weird. And it was kind of about the size of a basketball from my vantage point. And how high up that would have been, you know, somewhere in between the lowest that the military flies and you know, commercial airplanes. So I'm just guessing that it's somewhere in between that. And comes over from my right over the mountain, and it starts to, you know, I'm following it, and it goes over between what looks like, I mean, things look different from the ground in the valley and with mountains on each side. So what kind of looks like it might be right overhead may be pretty far away, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it goes over to it's just kind of putting along. It's not zipping by or nothing. It's just moving at a steady speed, and I'm watching it for, well, I don't know, several 20 seconds or something. I don't know. Uh, it just goes over from right to left, and then when it seems like it's almost over to the mountain that's across from me, there's one behind me that I live on, and then there's a highway, and then there's another mountain. And when it looks like it's about over there, it just disappears, and it don't absorb up, it don't flash out. It's just it'd be like if you was watching a movie and it's like it's in one frame, and then the next frame it's not there. It's just quick. It just gone. It didn't zip off, didn't do nothing. It was just disappeared in that spot. And then right as that happened, another light, a white one, that probably was about a little bit bigger than what a planet would look like, when it closed. And it was a bright white orb, and it comes from the east, and from around that mountain, and it goes to this one's moving, and it zips to right where that one orange one disappeared. It was almost like it didn't stop, but it's almost like it slowed down just a little bit, and then it zipped off to the west behind me, because I'm facing towards it, and it zips off in the blink of an eye. I mean, it just and was gone. I've seen a couple of different white lights just like that one going different ways. One night I was out and I see one going by, and I think, well, that's probably the space station. And I can tell when it's the space station because it's moving at a certain speed, and I can just tell that's what it is. And so I see it go by. I'm guessing that's what it was. And then all of a sudden, another one goes by. It's moving just a little bit faster, but it's going another way. Like, well, that's not the space station because it don't go that way. It only goes around one way. It don't go that way, and there's not two or three. So I don't know what that one. Maybe it could have been a rocket leaving the space station. I ain't ruled that out or nothing. I'm just saying I seen something. I don't know what it was.
Well, that's what's nice about your part of the country is you guys have some of that truly dark sky out there. Unlike myself, where I have a ton of light pollution and I can barely see even the brightest of stars. So yeah, it's a lucky night if I get to see like Orion's belt or something. Well, Marcus, I really appreciate you being willing to come on and share these encounters. If you have any more with massive black cats or the white thing / Bigfoot out there, please get in touch with me, okay?
I definitely will.
Well, thank you so much.
Hopefully, I'm hoping I'll see it again myself.
On another late smoking break, right?
Well, it's hard to tell what not. Like all my old timers tell me, you never know what might come out of the mountains.
Yeah, that's for sure. We've all been there. At least those of us that like to talk about this stuff. We're all like, yeah, there's some weird stuff out there, especially in Appalachia. I love that part of the country, and I've never been to Virginia, but as you know, I've been to West Virginia quite a number of times. So a lot of weird stuff out in your area. Well, thank you so much, Marcus.
Yeah. Well, thank you for letting me come on and tell my experiences. I didn't want to sound like, I've seen this, and this, but there's all kinds of weird stuff that happens around here. But I've never had a ghost encounter, so who knows?
Well, maybe that's coming up. Maybe that you don't have to be outside smoking for. Maybe, not that I want anything to start in your own home, because that's not very fun, I don't think, for most people that experience that. But, yeah, no, you don't sound, whatever word you can insert there at all. I think that when you especially grow up in a place like that, you're bound to have stuff go down.
I think a lot more people have probably had the same type of things. They're just afraid of what other people will think, and me, I've just got that I don't care attitude. Like I know what I know, so
right.
I tell people, like, I don't believe in Bigfoot. I know it because I'll have my own encounter. I don't have to believe in any of this. I know it as a fact.